I was reading online and I was looking at your LinkedIn and I saw this fact from a reliable media company that vegans and vegetarians are twice as depressed as meat eaters. Is that true? I mean, I had no idea.
It's so interesting. I grew up where I was basically, I'm still in this religion, but I basically fasted like literally every single year of my life growing up, half a year from animal products. And like there was a period in time like in 2016 where like I was vegan. And a lot of the times when people like hear that, like, oh, vegans are more likely to be depressed, people think it's kind of like it's almost like an insult towards vegans of like, oh, they're more likely to be depressed because, I don't know, they're like more aware of like how the world works and they like feel, pain for animals and things like that. So I'm not talking about it from that perspective. You know what I mean? Like if someone has their own beliefs and what they believe in, people should do whatever they want.
For
But
sure.
what I will say is that um it's true. And the reason why it's true, and it may not be true for everybody, and it's there's no absolutes and it may differ from person to person. But I mean, like the reality is that human beings have been eating meat ever since that we've existed, literally for thousands of years. And so the fact that like people now are saying that, oh, we should follow a diet that's like vegan is like literally the opposite of literally everything that human beings have been doing at a biological level, and like we can change society and we can change things, but the reality is like you can't change hardwired evolutionary biology. And to take a step further, like when you look at it, right? Why is this happening? Part of the reason is because, like when you just look at meat, right? Like a lot of people think meat is just, or animal products is just protein, you know. And the reality is that meat is filled with things that your brain and your body can like rapidly absorb in a very good way. So for example, um, there's this compound that your brain like really needs called omega-3 essential fatty acids. And this has been like literally shown like hard evidence that, basically like literally every single mental health issue is correlated with an omega-3 deficient brain. The US Navy did a study that showed that if you are deficient in omega-3s, you have an increased chance of like 65% chance of committing suicide. So like this stuff is like very serious stuff. Like this stuff is
Wow.
like your brain cannot produce it by itself. It says it's omega-3 essential fatty acids, which mean your brain has to consume it from somewhere else. And for example, like for the most part, it's only found in like in seafood. And for example, like
Crazy.
there are other sources of omega-3s that are found in like nuts and seeds and things like that. But the thing is that they're a different form of omega-3. And on top of that, a lot of people, they actually struggle to convert it into a bioactive form, like in their body. And so again, like for me, I honestly don't care what people eat. Like if people have beliefs, they can eat whatever they want. But for me, like part of the reason why I'm passionate that like all of a sudden over like the last 10 years, all of a sudden the entire like message is like, oh, go plant-based or go vegan. You should mostly be eating plants. I just feel like that's not true whatsoever. And on top of that, there's very detrimental consequences to that, depending on the person. If someone just stops eating, all animal products, the reality is it's like it's not like they're just going to eat more broccoli. They're not. What they're going to do is they're going to go to the store. They're going to be super hungry. They're going to be nutrient deprived. They're going to go to the grocery store and they're going to be like, oh, let me see what's vegan. And then you have all these like companies that have just like sprouted out of thin air that are all these vegan companies, which again, there are some good ones, but a lot of them are not good. They literally just sell the same exact product with, sugar and
Yeah,
all
some
these
different wording on the
preservatives.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, use some different wording, and they just like remove the eggs, and it's like, yo, the bad part about that was not the eggs, like it was not the animal products, it was the sugar, it was the preservatives. And so that's what happens, and I've seen it happen 1,000 times. And again, I don't think there's anything such as a universal healthy diet, but I definitely believe that human beings need to eat like a species appropriate diet. And like the most amount of evidence that we have, like they have studies where they've taken carbon isotopes, and they've literally showed how human beings have been eating meat for thousands of years, because like farming and all this stuff is very, very hard to do. It's very hard to come up with like enough food for only plants than to just like hunt an animal, which is why like there's literally never been a successful like society or civilization in human history that has been even at all vegan whatsoever.
You
You know,
know,
so
it's a really interesting subject that I am not an expert in, but the way that I think about, any subject like this is in, the larger context, right? And while I do think that in 2022, the world, despite what the news says, despite what media says, it's the greatest it's ever been. It has never been better than right now at this moment, whenever you're listening to this podcast. You know, medicine is better, lifespans are longer. There's more variety. You can travel anywhere. We're going back to space. There are a billion things that are technology is 1,000, probably more than 1,000 times better than it was 100 years ago. Probably a million times better, right? But with that being said, I do wonder, if similar to how you reference people back in the day eating meat because that's all we knew. Maybe we weren't as wise or smart or developed, but there's usually a lot of happiness in that. And it's to compare humans to any other species, like you wouldn't see a shark completely change their diet. Uh, you know, I- Probably because they're not as intelligent as we are and don't overthink everything that happens in the world. But on like a happiness front, in tangent with this, I think the reason why a lot of people are unhappy now isn't because the world is any worse place. Like I said, it's probably the best it's ever been. It's just because we're not channeling our roots of happiness, which are you need to get sunlight, you got to get outside, you got to
true.
work out, you got to eat good food. That's it.
Exactly.
There's pretty much nothing else. But that's like the context that I think about,
Yeah.
everything through. And this like debate, I don't even think it should be a debate.
Yeah.
You
No.
know, there do what you want to do, but I want everybody to be healthy.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe if they don't want to eat meat or whatever, there's gotta be better ways to get them the stuff that is good for them.
For sure.
And the conversation around education is just something that I generally believe in.